Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Fridays with Vistage webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some items to help you participate in today's webinar. If you're experiencing technical difficulties joining the webinar session, please dial support at 888-259-8414. When you join today's webinar, you selected to join either by phone call or computer audio. If for any reason you'd like to change your selection, you can do so by accessing your audio pane in your control panel. During the presentation, all participants are in listen-only mode. Please note that the PDF of today's presentation is available for download on your control panel. A recording of this presentation will be sent to attendees via email within the next week. I would now like to introduce the moderator for today's webinar, Bill Black.
Welcome to Fridays with Vistage. My name is Bill Black. I'm a Vistage member and speaker and your moderator for today's webinar entitled Talent Imperatives for 2019. You can expect hiring to remain a critical business issue into 2019 as the economy continues its expansion and employment rates remain at record lows. Talent shortages, employee turnover, and low engagement are significant challenges that likely keep you up at night because they can limit your company's ability to grow. This webinar previews the key 2019 trends in employment, talent, and culture, and it also outlines the top strategies to implement in the coming year so your company is poised to win the war for talent. Today's speaker is Heather Hope, Vice President of Marketing at TalenTrust. Heather has been with TalenTrust for 6 years and is an accomplished communications professional. She works in concert with the firm's founder and CEO, Kathleen Quinn Vota, to develop and promote much of her firm's resources for Vistage members. These resources include Kathleen's book titled Solve the People Puzzle, How High-Growth Companies Attract and Retain Top Talent, plus webinars for Fridays with Vistage and the Manufacturing Network. Heather's firm, TalenTrust, is focused on human capital consulting and serves middle-market companies across the U.S. Heather's based in Colorado, where she loves trail running and running after her 2 young children. Heather, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bill, for your introduction. And hello, it's a pleasure to join you all today and to be on the grand finale of the Fridays with Vistage webinar series for 2018. I will go ahead and preview some of the key trends for the year ahead and give you some actionable advice on how to address them. And before I do that, I'll jump off of webcam and I will jump back on later on during Q&A. So thanks again for joining us. So what does 2019 have in store? Our prediction, along with other HR leaders, is that 2019 will be a great year to be a candidate and a hard one to win that top talent. By now, everyone is hyper aware that the talent war is real. Our unemployment rate is at 3.7% and declining, and it's the lowest since 1969. So we have moved from a tough talent market to really a tipping point. And essentially that means that companies and candidates have switched roles. You don't pick them, they pick you. It's becoming increasingly hard and time-consuming and expensive to find the right people just when you need them most. For context, here's a statistic. There are now more job openings than people to hire. As of July 2018, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported 6.2 million unemployed and 6.9 million open jobs. So what could be called a talent scarcity is really leading and driving a fundamental change in the recruiting and really in virtually every other business function that's related to people. CEOs often list the inability to find and keep talented people as a key issue and one that limits their growth. So before I dive further into some key trends for the year ahead, I'd love to do a brief poll, our first one of the morning. How much has your company been impacted by the current talent shortage? Minimal impact, some impact, or significant impact? I'll give you a few moments to make your selection. And I'll just note that really every company, regardless of size, is fighting the same talent war and competing for the same increasingly scarce resources, which is good people. So let's go ahead and see what the results are and what you've said is how your company has been impacted by this talent shortage. Some impact and significant impact. Okay. Absolutely, and you're going to go ahead and see that as we continue into 2019. So we'll go ahead and close that out. And I'm going to talk about some of the major trends to track in 2019 before I jump into the 6 areas to focus on. So recruiting and retention are really going to be top or equal priorities. And the current market is 90% candidate driven. So that means that there needs to be more innovative recruiting strategies and methods, things like social media, analytics, and other means. A big trend that we're seeing is this idea of the individual becoming really paramount. So organizations will need to navigate a range of employee needs and identify ways they can offer employees customized experiences and training tools and rewards. Rather than being judged just on financial performance or quality of products and services, organizations are also now being evaluated on their impact on society at large. So good citizenship has become a CEO level strategy, and it really will help you to find, keep, and grow the people that you need on your team. Another key trend that we're keeping an eye out is this idea of the gig economy, which is the contingent workforce model. It's really accelerated to widespread adoption across a number of different types of organizations and industries. And it's estimated by 2020 that approximately 50% of the US workforce will be either temporary, contract, or freelance workers. So having an understanding of how the gig economy will work for your organization will be key. Another major trend is providing a work environment where employees can live and work in a healthy and sustainable way. It really becomes a part of your corporate brand, and this idea of well-being is becoming a good mission for HR to champion. So well-being might be, it ranges from a focus on health and wellness to a focus on productivity and purpose and financial security. And so that idea of well-being we'll get into more this morning. Another key trend is recruitment marketing, which is using marketing tactics to recruit, and inbound recruiting, which is proactively and continually attracting candidates. They're becoming top trends and really the way to differentiate your company. And then finally, another key trend to keep an eye on is the fact that 75% of job seekers now research a company's reputation and employment brand before they apply. So they're learning more about you, again, seeking you out versus you seeking them out. So since finding and keeping the right talent is really cornerstone, today I'm going to focus on 6 areas that seem most relevant to recruitment and retention in 2019. They are: number 1, strategic HR; number 2, culture and brand; number 3, engagement; number 4, technology; number 5, recruiting processes; and number 6, social enterprise. So we will jump in to this first area, strategic HR first. This really means you need to put a chair at the table for your CHRO. Now, no one would argue that sales and marketing are really strategic business functions. They get a high level and strong executive support. They get big budgets. And the reason why they do that is because they have data-driven decision-making, market segmentation, powerful branding, a customer focus. Recruiting needs to do the same thing and really take its rightful place as a strategic priority. And this begins oftentimes with the results of what we call a gap analysis on your current systems and strategies for human capital. You need to understand where you are and where you need to be and how to close that gap, and then follow that by elevating the HR head or the HR leader to the C-suite and giving them that proverbial chair at the table. No matter the size of your company, if you don't already have an outstanding CHRO, I really would encourage you to consider this strongly and begin seeking one. Having a strategic HR leader on your team will really ensure that you have what it takes and that competitive edge to both find and keep those best people. And you really can't grow your business without thinking strategically about the people. So here's a few key trends that the CHRO will really need to focus on in the year ahead. The first is really refining the HR strategies and philosophies to ensure that they're working for your business operations and your culture. The second is understanding how to better use technology in order to make data-driven decisions. The third is working with the C-suite to align goals and create a learning culture where values and processes and practices really enhance the competencies of the people on your team and ultimately drive increased performance. The next is looking at personalized training programs so that they're using cutting edge technology. They support professional growth that the people on your team desire, and they will again prepare for that performance in a highly competitive environment. And then the final is really focusing most specifically on being, instead of a service provider and a functional expert, really focusing on that strategy. And that strategy is really key. So we really love to see this trend and this idea of elevating HR to where it belongs at that strategic level. So Bill, I don't know, do you have any questions at this point from participants today related to what I've talked about with strategic HR and elevating that CHRO role?
Yeah, Heather, actually we do. The question is, do you recommend that we promote our most senior HR leader to the role of, I think you called it CHRO?
It's a good question. I would say it depends. It really depends on the skill set of the individual. They likely know your organization, know the ins and outs, so that's a benefit. But you need to ask yourself, are they strategic versus tactical? Do they have a sales and marketing mindset? And then finally, can they be a change agent and really drive that change and that growth and that strategic shift that you need to really envelop and really elevate HR to a more strategic mindset? So really good question. And actually, another thing I would add to that is we did an article and a webinar as TalenTrust most recently called Why Your Business Should Give HR a Seat at the Table. And so I'd love to send that to participants after today's event because I think understanding more about why and how to get that seat at the table for HR is really critical. And I think we've also done a webinar on what I alluded to, this idea of a gap analysis, so that you can kind of do it yourself before or as you bring somebody into this role of CHRO, where you're looking at your current systems, your processes, your strategies, so that you can understand where you are and where you need to be and how to close those gaps. So good question. All right, next we'll move on to the next one, which is culture and brand. So you need to realize that you are in the people business. No matter what you sell or what you produce or what you make or how you serve your clients, you are truly in the people business and you need your team members to drive your growth. So culture and brand really intertwine to define how people experience your company, whether they're a candidate or an employee or a vendor or a customer. So it's really more important than ever that you really strategically and thoughtfully manage every step of their experience they have with you. So at any point in the day, keep in mind, a single individual could use social media to share a bad experience that really could upend your brand and question your culture. So both candidates and employees can be really choosy in today's job market, as I've indicated with the stats I provided. So make sure that you're aligning their experience of your organization with your actual purpose and values and brands and culture. So there's a consistency there. What you aspire to do may sound great on paper, but you need to make sure that your day-to-day culture and that reality that will be experienced inside of your company and outside of your organization is really true and authentic. So first I'll speak to this idea of brand. And this is really, what is your reputation as an employer? Is it good? Is it bad? Are you unknown? Are you a hidden gem? Your employment brand is really based on your reputation in the marketplace. And brands have always been with us, but they've been primarily associated with large companies. But this is changing with the rise in social media, and companies of every size are really beginning to exercise more control over how they are viewed and how they're portrayed. So this year, it's an exciting time. We will really see companies creatively market their brand and make sure that their values and their brand and their experience is of central focus. So again, the caveat is that you risk that you promote how you want to be seen versus your reality. So I think it's important that you look at Glassdoor and social media and the internet in general, and realize that there's no longer a place that you can hide behind an established brand name or a past reputation. People really have access to information about who you are right now, and that's really what matters. So make sure that you are not only who you aspire to be, but who you say you are, and prove it by keeping the promises to the candidates and the employees that you engage with. So the first step is really designing and delivering a compelling and an authentic employment brand. And that is by identifying your purpose and your values. Why does your organization exist? And how will your values guide you in accomplishing your goals? And then after you've articulated these core values, make sure that they're practiced in every stage of the employee life cycle. This begins when a candidate is interested in a role at your organization, and it ends when they depart and retire or move on to another organization. So people are really looking to join an organization where the culture and the values match what they've been promised as a candidate and before they get hired. I would recommend an additional resource that we've done with TalenTrust at Vistage, a Fridays with Vistage webinar and article about how to leverage your employment brand to really attract top talent. And then I'm going to segue and speak to culture next. So do you have culture by design or culture by default? We know that culture is really hard to quantify. It's been a hot topic for many years now for executives, and it really remains a key critical factor in your ability to attract and engage and retain people. So if you've sat back and you've let your culture kind of evolve at will, or if you're in the upper reaches of your organization and you're not sure what happens across all levels or geographic areas within your organization, you know, the big C that you have really look to establish versus the little c and what's lived out day to day in the organization, it's time to take stock and really understand how people experience your culture. There's some great trends to watch in 2019 related to culture that are tied into culture. The first one I alluded to earlier, which is well-being. Understanding that everyone is overloaded, there's a dizzying pace of change in the workplace. People are working more and sleeping less. They want to have the time to think and care for their overall health. And so companies will, in this coming year, really explore creative ways to advance that well-being through things like technology, stress management, wellness programs. Another thing is the rise of the individual and how that connects to your culture. People are really no longer treated in mass as resources. There's a newer organization model that we'll be developing so that you can respond better in a more personal way to the diverse needs of a really multi-generation workforce. The next key trend is reskilling and upskilling, which I will speak to a little bit later, which is really preparing employees for the future of work by consistently reskilling and upskilling. Employees will have more say in defining their individual developmental plans, and employers will need to provide guidance and support. The idea is to really focus on the people that you have in your organization in addition to those that you're adding to your organization, and making sure that you're giving them skills and advancement opportunities and leveraging what you have already in your organization. And then two other key trends that impact culture. One is the Internet of Things, which is really this connected, networked world of connected devices and objects and people. It's creating really collaborative workplaces that really help build trust and enable people to make better decisions. And they really drive innovation. So we're seeing high performance teams and virtual networks become a dominant source of that innovation that companies need to drive their growth. And then finally, another element of culture is leadership, and this idea of empathy and this idea of authenticity and vulnerability, and people wanting to see that in their leaders. So I would also recommend another webinar and article that we have done with Fridays with Vistage called Creating Culture by Design, as an additional resource for you as you take a look at your culture and your brand. Bill, do we have any questions at this point related to culture and brand that I could address?
Yeah, there is one, Heather. It's how do we assess our employment brand?
Oh, that's a good question too. You really have to take a look at and do some surveys of your employees and find out what attracted them to your organization and what makes it different from other organizations or your competitors or other firms in your geographic area. and really what keeps them there. Really understanding the employee experience and what makes your firm unique from their perspective is key. The Gallup Q12 is another great resource that we recommend to companies to really understand engagement, but there's a way to add on additional questions to really get a sense of the engagement levels and also what sort of things around your culture are driving either that engagement or that disengagement. It's a tricky thing, culture. I've heard it described as being like air, and I agree with this. This idea that it's there, it's essential. You may not even notice that it's there, and you really have to stop and pause because it's essential, and it could also be harnessed into this sort of tailwind of progress versus a headwind of distraction and difficulty. And so it's really important now more than ever. Employees are seeking these cultures that are empowering, seeking these cultures that they connect with that will really be a fantastic place for them to work. Good question.
Heather, we have one more question if you take it now. How can smaller, under 20 employee B2B firms communicate their employer brand? It seems nearly impossible if your main brand isn't well known in general.
Oh, so in answer to that, Bill, I would say your employees can be your very best brand ambassadors. So if you're a small company, we are at TalenTrust, we're less than 25 people. We're all dispersed geographically all around the country, and we work virtually. But all of our team members are true brand ambassadors for the services we offer to our clients and also for the culture that we offer to our employees and their role in contributing to that culture and making it a really viable and an engaging place. So your employees really can be those brand advocates. They can talk about their experience. They can share it with their peers outside the organization. They can share it with potential candidates. Your employees in a small knit, a tightly knit organization can really be where kind of the David and Goliath takes place. And you as the small guy can do a lot with that. Don't feel like you have to be this enormous company, with these logos that we see on the deck today. You don't have to be a Microsoft or a Google or a Facebook or a Coca-Cola or a Zappos to really have a fantastic culture and shout it from the rooftops. Excellent question. All right, we will go ahead and move on to the third component that I want to talk about today, which is engagement. So companies put a lot of time and energy into recruiting, but those efforts are really worthless or even harmful if you're a revolving door and employees are coming one in, one out, one in, one out. Once you hire people, you can't afford to take them for granted. So really engaging and keeping the talent you have earns great ROI, and it really becomes a critical imperative for the year ahead. So we're seeing that engagement levels are continuing to improve into 2018 and 2019. However, Gallup still finds that 53% of workers are currently not engaged. And I'm always staggered by the statistic of low engagement. So it really means this number that more than half of workers are just going to show up for work. They're going to do the minimum that's required, and they're going to leave the minute something better comes along. So this does not add up to a high-performing company. So you have options like re-recruiting and stay interviews to add to your practices to really boost that engagement and that retention effort. Both of these things offer a really personalized way to stay connected with employees and meet their needs. So I'll dive into these both a little bit more in detail. So re-recruitment involves applying your external recruiting strategies to your current employees, specifically and especially your top talent. It's showing them that they have an exciting future ahead with you. You can share news about new opportunities that might be of interest to them and make sure that they're happy with the level of recognition and reward that they're getting for their accomplishments. You can offer them new perks. An example might be more flexibility or working from home. Above all, it really pays to listen to what they say about their current satisfaction as well as their additional needs. It's so much more effective to take somebody who already knows your company, who's already serving your clients, doing great work, who's a top and high performer, and understand what they need from you to stay with you versus the effort to go out and find somebody to fill their shoes. So re-recruitment should really be this ongoing point of connection. Don't wait to have these conversations until the people you want most are considering another offer or talking to another organization. The second one is stay interviews. So this really helps managers understand why employees stay and what kinds of things might cause them to leave. So these could be short, casual conversations. They really consist of a standard list of questions, and they last about a half an hour. And it's really more valuable, again, versus an exit interview, because these questions give you insight and your manager's insight on what to use to motivate and retain these valuable employees. So I'll do a brief survey here, our next poll, and find out, does your company currently conduct the following, which I've talked about? Do you do re-recruitment, or do you do stay interviews, or do you do both? I'll give you a few moments to make your selection. And then I will talk a little bit about how to support engagement with some fantastic benefits and what we're seeing in terms of benefits. So let's see what your answers are, and if you guys are on the call or involved with any of these re-recruitment or stay interviews. Okay, it's good to see that this is happening to some extent. 50% of you are doing stay interviews, and 33% of you are doing both stay interviews and re-recruitment. Excellent. All right, we'll shift, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how you support engagement with great benefits. So let's be honest, we know we can't create a positive employee experience if we're skimping on benefits. And so one way to really communicate that you care about your employees, that you value them and their well-being, is to offer a comprehensive set of benefits. So a couple of benefit trends to keep in mind as we look at the year ahead that I want to know. One is voluntary benefit options that are paid for by employees. The other is student loan assistance. The third one is multifaceted wellness programs. So here we see this wellness theme popping up again. The next one is flexibility in scheduling, in telecommuting, even in fully remote positions, in open-ended time off. I know at TalenTrust we offer what we call unlimited vacation. And it is a fantastic benefit that our employees really, really value, really appreciate, and that really doesn't cost us a lot. So I know as small and medium-sized businesses, you're looking for benefits that will not be really costly. So that's a great one to keep in mind, flexibility. And then another one is technology perks. And this obviously drives further productivity. So perks like personal iPads, at-home workstations, and then more generous parental perks. This is really being driven by the younger generations in the workforce and also by the older generations that are seeking help with elder care as well. So these are some ways that the benefits trends are playing out, and you might be able to consider supporting or boosting engagement with good benefits. Do we have any questions related to engagement or to benefits before we move on?
Yeah, we do. Here's the question, Heather. What's the first step in determining which benefits to offer?
You know, I'd say the first step is really assess what you can do as a company before you survey your employees. So think about what's realistic. If you're a manufacturing firm, you might not be able to offer remote work possibilities. If you're in healthcare services, bring your dog to work might not be the best policy. So really take a look at what's realistic for your culture, for your company. Take a look at what's happening externally and benchmark against those trends and those best practices for what those top employers are doing. And then I would say survey your employees to understand in their perspective, what is most critical and what would be most valued by them. It doesn't do you a lot for you to offer something that's a benefit to them if it's not actually perceived as a benefit. So great question. All right, we will move on to the fourth point today in terms of an imperative for 2019, and that is related to technology. So be prepared to enter yet another new era as it relates to technology. It's amazing how quickly technology and technical evolutions are happening. And HR is really starting to become more tech savvy and strike that balance between the human and the machine. And we're seeing that some really disruptive solutions are here to optimize recruitment, optimize productivity, and optimize performance. So innovation really brings us the benefits of cost efficiencies, simplified processes, support in decisions, increased transparency, reduced risk, and growing collaboration. I think technology as a key to drive innovation and collaboration is really important. So specific to recruiting, technology can really cut the time to hire, and it can increase hiring accuracy. By using algorithms and data-driven insights, it will really help focus on skills and reduce the bias that's inherent in the hiring process. So again, using technology to support data and data-driven decisions. And these two new technologies don't always apply just to large corporations. We're seeing a lot of small and middle market companies that are no longer playing catch up, and they're really embracing these emerging tech solutions as a key element of their growth strategy and also their strategies to find and keep great people. So there might be things like investing in enhancements and new tools for recruitment, performance management, training, engagement, well-being, and really virtually related to virtually anything related to people and organizations. So there are there's three key HR technologies that are moving from trends to really more wide use, and I want to just kind of talk about them really briefly today. The first one is AI, artificial intelligence. Now, it's not replacing jobs necessarily as people may think, but it's improving the aspects of human capital management. AI provides insight about workforce metrics. It aids in that database decision making. It enhances the candidate and the employee experience, and it can really offer some real-time solution for a variety of issues. There's even AI-based coaching and development planning that's available for employees. The next one is analytics. So widely applying the data you collect from employees and enabling you to combine and compare and aggregate it with other information. So this can help you understand how survey data correlates against productivity. It can help you understand turnover levels and causes, potential performance levels, and flight risk. So what's different today is that the information in these analytics is used to go a step further, not just to identify issues, but then to work to prevent them and address them before they become issues. And then I'd say the third element of technology to keep an eye on that's becoming more than just a trend is virtual reality. We're seeing it increasingly used in recruiting and in onboarding. It's really changing the face of training and development. It allows you to assess job skills that can't be necessarily seen in traditional interviews. It lets you have candidates show you versus just tell you. And it allows people to really experience what their potential job might be like with your organization. So I love this idea of technology and its evolution really impacting the non-technology and the human component. And this analogy that I heard, you may have heard, or you'll probably use Netflix, and you may have heard of Spotify. So Netflix for movies and Spotify for music. It's the idea of using technology to inform hiring decisions. It's like matching candidates to your company in the way that Netflix or Spotify matches you with the exact content that you're looking for. So I think there's tremendous advancements in technology, and it's exciting to see, again, how that's impacting the human element. Number 5, I'm going to talk about something really near and dear to our heart at TalenTrust, to my heart as well, the recruiting process. And this is really driving companies to shift their paradigm. We talked at the beginning of this webinar today about how attracting and retaining talent is a top concern, and it's often the number 1 concern for the C-suite. Yet recruiting systems are still hiring people that fail 50% of the time. If you look at your own turnover rates, you look at turnover rates across the board, you look at these issues, and you can see that this is fundamentally not working for companies and candidates. So the recruiting process, if it exists, is broken, and it needs to be completely shifted. So there's now a major shift going on, and the focus has moved from treating candidates, really to treating candidates like customers, and having that marketing and sales mindset, and really using technology to get insight into the things that really don't fit in a resume, and the things that would make a candidate really be the right fit for your organization. So this is how you get the best talent in 2019. Companies can no longer afford outdated strategies or processes related to recruiting talent. This is really the shortage that I spoke to earlier, the talent shortage, puts immense pressure on HR to become smarter, faster, and more strategic. There's more jobs than people to fill them, and we've like I said, we've reached a tipping point. So recruiters must show more creativity in discovering the candidates that are out there and prioritizing the candidate experience in every step of the way. So this comes in the form of recruitment marketing and inbound recruiting. And recruiters are doing really innovative things that help manage the talent challenges. So here's a few things that recruiting team and strategies that could be implemented at your organization. The first and most important, I would say, is becoming adept marketers. So developing a strong employment brand, a career webpage, using social media to reach out and advertise, really in order of importance across LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Using texting, addressing Glassdoor reviews online, doing social sleuthing on candidates to find out about them in the same way that they're finding out about you. So really becoming adept marketers is key. Another one is investing in learning platforms and development tools so you can build the talent pipeline. And coincidentally, this training and development is a priority for our youngest generations in the workforce. Another thing that relates to this recruiting process and recruiting imperative is looking beyond traditional full-time employment. Again, to what I spoke to earlier about this idea of the gig economy, cultivating communities of talent outside of your organization and complementing existing skills of employees, either on projects or in the short term. Another is updating hiring and recruiting technologies to make sure that you have optimized and targeted and streamlined the recruiting and the hiring process so that it's most effective and most efficient. Another one is reaching out to community colleges, governments, other organizations to develop vocational training programs and to really look at how to attract local talent and address skills gaps. We speak about this a lot within the manufacturing network at Vistage, and it's really critical. This idea of looking to community colleges, governments, others in your space and in your industry, and collaborating to develop training so that you can address skills gaps. And then the final one, really, and this is key, applying a talent planning framework. So it's not just an ad hoc tactical endeavor. Instead, you're aligning a talent strategy with the business strategy and doing talent planning. So it's incorporating effective processes, it's engaging employees and developing them, and it involves leadership. So again, this is really key. In terms of additional resources, I would really encourage you to read an article that we have shared recently called The 9 Guidelines for Recruitment Strategies in 2019. And I'll send you the link in follow-up to today's webinar. And I want you to keep in mind this benchmark from Burson. Burson is the talent division of Deloitte, and we use this benchmark when we do our people puzzle gap analysis at TalenTrust. We offer a scorecard and we assess where our clients fall on this scale of 1 to 4. And then we make really specific recommendations on how to move well beyond that level. This is something you can do yourself as well. You can do a DIY gap analysis and understand where you are within these levels. I'm going to go ahead and define these 4 levels of talent acquisition. And then as part of that, in a moment, we will launch the survey to see where you are among these 4 levels. So the first one, at the highest level, level 4, talent acquisition is a strategic enabler and a partner within the business. The strategic focus is on forecasting external forces and remaining agile. The organization is committed to investing in talent acquisition products and services in order to stay competitive. That's really level 4, fully optimized talent acquisition. Level 3 means that talent acquisition is fully integrated with human resources and talent management functions. Your organization has effective social media campaigns and a powerful employment brand. It has a robust talent acquisition program in place, including alumni networks, and it really has formalized employee referral programs. Then level 2 is standardized operational recruiting. And this means that processes and technology are standardized across your organization, and your recruiters are developing strong relationships with hiring managers, and there's a really effective assessment framework so that you can measure candidates against what you require for the job. Your organization is beginning to manage your employment brand, and you can really define a solid employee value proposition that helps people understand why they would join your organization. And then level 1 is recruiters really function as order takers. They are order takers for hiring managers. There are hiring processes if they exist. They may not exist. If they do, they're probably not well defined. There's minimal hiring standards that are adhered to, and there's really no strategic focus on the candidate experience. So now that I've defined these 4 levels based on Burson's work of the talent acquisition model, we'll go ahead and launch the next poll and give you a moment to tell us which level best describes your organization. And I think it's really important to be honest here and to understand that most of the companies that we advise at TalenTrust, like a majority of SMB companies, fall at level 1. And they show dramatic opportunity for improvement. We work with a lot of clients to get them to level 1 and then above to level 2, 3, and 4. So I'll give you a few seconds here, and then let's share the results of our poll and see where you all say you are at. Okay, so you are saying, the bulk of you, which is fantastic to hear, that you're really at that level 2. Where you're utilizing processes and technology at standard across your full organization. You have strong relationships with your hiring managers and a really effective assessment framework. And you have an employment brand, and you've defined your employee value proposition. If you're at this level, fantastic. There's more to go to continue to rise up and continue to elevate your strategy around talent acquisition. If you are at level 1, which a third of you today say you are, there is more room for improvement, but you are not alone. Please do not feel as though you're alone. Like I said, the bulk of the companies that we advise are really at this point. So we'll go ahead and close this out, and then I'm going to jump to the last imperative related to talent and culture that I want to make you aware of for the coming year. And this is really around social enterprise. So you can expect really a seismic shift in how companies are viewed and in this focus on doing good. We can't overlook this rise of social enterprise. It's really one of the major trends that's developed over the last few years, and it's really exciting to see from my perspective. The term social enterprise can be difficult to define, and in terms of traditional businesses, the concept really refers to integrating social impact into business operations and prioritizing social goals alongside financial returns. So take a look at companies like Ben & Jerry's, Chobani Yogurt, Tom Shoes, Warby Parker Eyeglasses. There's a full B Corp contingency out there that is certified as social enterprise companies, and those are the types of companies that I'm talking about. So this rise of the social enterprise concept is really interesting, and organizations are really no longer being assessed just on traditional metrics like financial performance or the quality of their products and services. Instead, they're being judged on their relationships with their workers, with their customers, and with their communities. So they're also being judged on their impact on society at large. So building these relationships and shifting to having a social enterprise thought and strategy, it forces business leaders to listen and to be transparent and to create collaboration and to build trust and credibility and consistency through their actions. It's not altruism, it's really becoming the way to maintain your reputation, and that leads into attracting and retaining and engaging critical workers and really fostering customer loyalty. So I go back to Simon Sinek, which I know so many Vistage members are familiar with, his concept of starting with why, starting with what drives your business, what drives those to work for you, and understanding that they want to be a part of something bigger. They want to be impacting each other. They want to be impacting your customers. They want to be impacting your community at large. So keep this trend in mind as you are planning and thinking ahead. And then finally, I want to give you just a quick recap before we jump onto the Q&A and the next steps. You've obviously joined us today because you anticipate that hiring will remain a critical business issue into 2019. And as Bill mentioned, the economy is really continuing its expansion and the unemployment rate remains at record lows. And while we see potentially some slowing in growth in 2019, we're not going to see a dramatic shift from it being a candidate-centered market and from there being significant talent shortages. So these talent shortages and employee turnover and low engagement are significant challenges that they potentially limit your growth, and we want to help you address some of these. So hopefully today I've previewed these key trends in employment and talent and culture, and I've given you a little bit of insight on how you could address these trends, some strategies to consider implementing in the coming year. I want to make sure that your company is really poised to win this ongoing war for talent and to achieve continued success. We're going to jump into our final poll, and then I'm going to talk about a few additional resources before we do Q&A. So based off of what we've talked about today, these key areas of focus, which one is your company's top priority as you look ahead and think about 2019? We've talked a lot about these key areas, and I want to know what's most important to you. I'll give you a few seconds here to make your selection, and then let's take a look at the results of our poll. Oh, I love to see that. That makes me happy to see that half of you are saying strategic HR is a top priority. It's my top priority. It's TalenTrust's top priority. If you get more strategic with HR, it sets the table. If you give a seat at the table to HR, make it strategic, it then sets the table for all of these other things that I've outlined today and empowers your organization to really take these trends head on and really implement these strategies that I've recommended. So thank you again for taking the poll, and we'll close that out. And in terms of next steps, I would like for you to text to the number 44222 the word people puzzle without any spaces. So again, that's 44222 the word people puzzle. I want to make sure that you get today's deck and also our new hiring guide for 2019, which really speaks more to these trends I've outlined today. I also want to send you the links to some of the articles and webinars that I've noted around branding and culture and recruitment processes and more, so that you have what you need to really be set up for success for next year. So again, the way to get this information is to text People Puzzle without a space. It's the title of the book, People Puzzle, to 44222, and we'll send you all these materials in follow-up. I really appreciate your time today. It's been fantastic to outline some of these things for you and to be with you, and I would love to pass it along to Bill for Q&A.
Terrific and thorough job, Heather. Take a breath for a second while I tell our listeners that if you have a question, please put it into the question toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. We have time for some questions. We do have several to get into, so let's get started. This seems to be the best first one for you, Heather. Of the 6 key areas you outlined, which do you recommend as the number one area of focus?
Yeah, I really think it is getting strategic with HR, giving HR a seat at the table. That sets the stage and everything else can flow out from there. I think secondary is this idea of brand and culture. It's so, in this age of transparency, you can no longer decide what your brand is and decide what your culture is. Your employees are telling you what your brand and your culture are. And it's fantastic as a small or mid-sized company to understand what your culture is, to look at how you can enhance it, and then look at how you can leverage it into your employment brand so that you're really being a sought-after employer.
Terrific. Okay, so what are key talent trends that would be specific to Vistage companies that you work with, Vistage member companies, I think, that you work with, or middle market firms?
And I think the key trend is this movement towards HR becoming more strategic. And larger companies have figured this out, that the small and mid-sized companies are just getting there. It's been predicted over the last few years that HR needed to become less tactical and more strategic. And there's a fantastic report actually that I can send you all in follow-up. It comes from the National Center for the Middle Market, so it's very applicable to those small and mid-sized companies. And it outlines the key issues that they face as it relates to finding and keeping and growing great people. And then it makes specific recommendations on how to do that. So we're finding that this idea of strategic HR is fluid throughout the National Center for the Middle Market and also recommendations for the bigger companies.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Heather, you're a restaurant manager. What are some great or cost-effective awards or prizes for restaurant sales incentives?
Oh, again, I think it goes back to talking to the people who are in your workforce to understand what they really want. Do they want a membership at a gym? Do they want a massage? Do they want money? Do they want a financial incentive? Do they want team time outside of the restaurant so that they can interact and build relationships with their peers and then serve your serve your customers in a more effective and warm and compelling way? It goes back to what your employees value and what they see as a benefit. It has to be perceived as a benefit in order for it to truly be a benefit.
Okay, great. Okay, here's another question for you. How do small companies with very limited budgets get the most from their HR and culture dollars? And what is the low-hanging fruit that is must-do rather than nice-to-do?
Okay. So can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry, Bill.
You bet. So how do small companies with very limited budgets get the most from their HR and culture dollars? Let's start there.
Okay. So I think that small companies can look to outside experts to help with the strategy and setting the stage and evaluating the process and the systems around HR to make sure they're most effective and efficient. If you've got a few key people that are driving HR in your organization, they need some outside advice and insight, some of these resources that we've talked about today to help them be more strategic and more efficient.
Thank you. Okay, what's the most effective and efficient way to enhance the candidate experience?
Oh, yeah, we talked a lot about the candidate experience and how it's a shift in paradigm. It's no longer about the experience of the candidate, meaning their resume and everything that all the experience they bring to the table from a professional standpoint. It's about the way they experience your organization. So this begins with how you formulate your job descriptions and how you describe the opportunities at your organization, how you describe the benefits and how you describe the growth opportunities on your website in the now hiring section. And then it goes from there. It goes to how they experience you in an interview setting and what your communication is like. I would say the number one thing, Bill, related to the candidate experience comes down to communication. And then that leads into transparency. Candidates want to understand what you're offering them, what you expect of them, where they are in the process, and they want continual touch points. So in the same way that you have multiple touch points with your clients and with your customers when they're prospective, you need to do the same thing with your candidates. And you need to bring them along through essentially a sales funnel or a sales pipeline. And you need to give them different nuggets throughout their exchanges with you that heighten their excitement about working for your organization. So it comes down to communication, communicating what your values are, communicating what the benefits are to joining your organization, communicating the growth opportunities, and really communicating what makes your organization more interesting and more compelling.
Terrific. Heather, could you please repeat the number and the wording to text for
Sure.
that you mentioned?
Absolutely. It is 44222, and the word is people puzzle without a space. So people puzzle. We'd be happy to get you a lot of follow-up links and resources, since this is just not deep enough in terms of the dive.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so we have recruiting or retention. What gets top billing?
Oh, can I give them equal billing?
Sure.
I think it's important that you be strategic about both. You will probably all know the work of Joe Galvin. He leads the research initiatives for Vistage, and he's done a ton of research this year about hiring, and recruitment and retention. And he agrees with us that really, for the first time ever, retention is trumping recruitment as a strategic imperative and effort. You have to hold on to the people who are with your organization, give them growth opportunities, and make sure that they stay. At the same time, you also have to be adding people to your organization. So I would say you have to give them equal billing. And another thing, when you're focused on when you're focused on retention, it's driving recruitment. If you're focused on offering a great experience to the people who are with your organization, they then become those brand advocates and they refer people to join your organization. So they're so interconnected.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. It was a really thorough job today and very, very interesting. And we want to thank you for your firm's involvement throughout the year with all the webinars that you've provided. It's been terrific.
Oh, we absolutely love to support Vistage. We are a small but mighty firm that focuses on human capital consulting, and we know that the Vistage members need this more than anyone. They're receptive to it, and we attribute so much of our growth and our success to membership in Vistage, to the resources that Vistage offers members, and it's our pleasure to be involved. So thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you for joining us today and participating in today's webinar. Hey, if you like this, why don't you tell your fellow Vistage members about this webinar and other webinars that are on Fridays with Vistage. It's a great way to learn, and people really appreciate the knowledge that's coming through these webinars. Hey, on behalf of Vistage Worldwide, this is Bill Black wishing you continued success. This concludes today's webinar.